Alright, today we need to weld together what would be a left or a right lane T-band green round belt. It's the 15 millimeter belts. I got it broke. It's right here. I usually keep a couple welded in the back. It's the only belt I know of that pops off and on real easy because it doesn't go around any extra shafts. We're just going to weld it back together. One note to say, in Brunswick's service manual for the GSX pinsetter, it does say that it's supposed to be 63 inches. I did the 63 inch at one time and with a brand new one to set it up. It had so much tension that it kind of tore out the bearings in that area. The plastic parts and everything just fell all apart. So I ended up emailing Brunswick about it, and I went up to 64 inches because I couldn't find any way to adjust that band out to where it just wouldn't destroy everything. Brunswick did eventually get back with me, and they said that yes, 64 inches would work. So in my service manuals, I crossed out all the 63 inches. I know you can't see it real close here. I'm not going to zoom in for that actual reason. It'll just blur out. But your left lane T-band and your right lane T-band on my green round belts, the 15 millimeters, we use 64 inches in our length. We kind of find out some of these round belts are really tight tensions, and we can get away with a lot more just giving ourselves an extra inch. So first thing I did is I've got the belt clamped here into the vise. I'm going to measure it just to check to see what it is. This is one of the original ones installed with our center. It just finally broke, so I'm just going to re-weld it to use it again, and I'm going to see how long it is. And I'm trying not to stretch it out. I'm just trying to hold it as straight as I can to look at it. I'm at about 63.5 on it. As I said, we usually do 64 inches. So I've already got my iron plugged in. That's one of the first things you probably already do. Get your iron plugged in. I just got it free hanging here so it won't burn anything. Once that's warmed up, I got my clamps. I'm not going to need my cutters because I'm not going to trim it any shorter. I don't want to put any more tension on it. But we're going to get set up here and we're going to weld this all back together. Alright, as you're welding this together, you want to keep the flow of the belt, or that you don't want to really twist it or kink it when you put it together. You want the belt to naturally come back around to itself when you put it in the clamps. You're just going to take your clamps. I'd recommend when you first get your clamps brand new, if you want to protect them, I'd recommend I put some flat washers over the top here. What that does is it spans out to cover this plastic part on the clamp. We've had it break before. I'm trying to get to where you can see it. It'll break off, but whenever we put that fender washer on there, it actually gives some rigidity to the back of this, because we put quite a bit of pressure down in different circumstances. Not in this circumstance because it's not really on the machine itself. But I'm going to look at the flow of this belt. I'm going to go ahead and spread this clamp open as wide as I can without letting it come off of the actual wheel, off of the threaded screw. Alright, so now that I've got it opened up, I can even see that the screw's recessed in this hole a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just clamp one side right in here close to the center. I'm going to make sure and push that fender washer as far as I can to the front of this piece of plastic here so it doesn't break off. Kind of hold it there too. Alright, so it's kind of close in the center here. I'm going to slide it over. And as I said, put your fender washer as close as you can to the front side of this tip that's holding on to the actual belt itself. So now it's tightened down. I'm gonna bring the belt around, not put any kinks in it, just bring it in a nice natural motion back to itself. At the school they told us butt them tight together. I don't like doing that so much. I give myself just a little hair, maybe like a 1/16 gap. It helps the iron, in my opinion, know what path to take. Before, whenever I've put it in there and I butt them tight together, the iron tends to tilt one way or the other as you're trying to go through in a straight manner. So I kind of give it just a little guideline to follow, basically. I'm going to tighten that down. Alright, so I'm set up. I got no extra pressure in the actual round belt itself. It's coming right back around to itself naturally. It's clamped in. I've got my iron over here heating up. So I'm going to set this on the bench, and we're going to get you in a different position. We'll start working with the iron. While the iron's still heating up, I'm going to try and give you a description of what's getting ready to happen here. We're going to take both of the green round belts, and at the edges we're going to be melting them, trying to make them, slowly melting them to let them heat up, make them gooey. And then whenever they get a good heat between them so that they'll fuse together properly, we're going to crank the actual clamp that they're in, bring it together. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to bond both melted sides of this round belt. As you crank it together, you got to watch, because there's a cold. Consider the palms of my hand, like this is the round belt, and this is the melted part in here. But then you're going to have a core that is not so warm and not going to fuse together as well. So as you crank this together, you got to watch that you don't crank it so much that the gooey part goes past each other, and then you get to the cold core, and you're pushing the core together. Once that core is pushed together, and if that fuses, it's going to break really easy, because it's a cold weld right there. It didn't really make a good union. So that's what you got to watch out. Whenever you crank it out, it's going to ooze some of that round belt out, but don't crank it so much that the cold cores in the center touch. That's not going to fuse very well. I have, like I said, on a league night, sometimes you have to get it going. You're kind of in a hurry. I have taken a propane torch before. Just a propane torch such as this. Strike it up, get a small flame coming out here. I've heat up the iron with that before, but that's just to give you a jump start. Don't use it to heat the whole iron. Don't get the iron glowing red hot, sorry. If you run that iron through and it's hot, and that green belt is, instead of just slowly bubbling, it just starts sizzling, that's not going to be better, because it's too much heat. I've done that before, and the weld did not end up going as, it got me through the league night, but it needed to be repaired later on. So if you got time, as soon as you start a green round belt repair, especially if it's on a league night, get your iron plugged in, get it preheating up, so it'll be ready for you when you go to use it. Yeah, I can feel the heat coming off of this one pretty well. We're about ready to start seeing if it'll cut through this green round belt. Alright, so I've got the small gap in the middle there. Be careful, this iron is hot. And the gap is just kind of help lead my iron right through the middle. It might be warm enough. I may have to do some more. Let's see. I usually seesaw it back and forth to keep edges of the knife that are still staying hot on there. Don't want to cool one edge out too much. The edge closest to the shaft here is going to be hotter, so I don't work out here on the tip so much. I try and work back in this area. Just going to kind of take my time, let the iron do the work. See if I can move you to a different angle. Sorry, trying to multitask. So you can see, probably in the video, you can see the light green section kind of oozing out. That's just where the clean new belt up underneath is slowly starting to melt. I'm just going to let the iron do the work. I'm not really forcing it. Now, once the iron drops through, I'm not going to immediately just go right to trying to bring them together. Once it drops through, I'm going to let it sit there and actually heat both sides a little. It's almost a drop through the bottom. Okay, so I'm through right now. The iron is in the dead center. I'm just going to kind of hold it there. Let it make both sides plenty warm. Not really trying to push left or right, just trying to hold it right there in the center. I can see some of the green round belt trying to bubble out, but it's not really sizzling. It can just do a low like you're melting cheese. Alright, so I believe it's time to bring it out. I'm going to set my iron, just let it free hang so I don't burn my legs or my arms. Now I'm going to start cranking this down. Bringing both of those together. They just started to touch. I'm going a little bit more, because like I said, I don't want to get into the center. I'm going to try and push some of that. I push some of that back in there. Sure is hot. Try and push it back in there so that it goes back in and bonds to the hotter stuff on the inside instead of trying to push it all out to the sides to me. Alright, now we're going to start a timer. We're going to let it sit for 2 minutes in the clamp. Once it's been in the clamp for 2 minutes, we'll take it out and then we'll clean it up around the actual union here, the joint where we welded it together. After we do that, we will not put it on the machine for another 10 minutes. But this one's going to be a spare, so I'm just going to trim it up and I'm going to just put it back on the rack. Next time somebody comes in, the belt breaks, they'll have an extra one to put on. Like I said, remember, don't screw it together so tight that you push all your center hot weld material out of the dead center. You don't want the cold cores to touch. Since I am done now, I'm going to go ahead and unplug the iron. I'm going to start letting it cool in a safe place till it's totally lost all temperature and I can put it back in our storage. Alright, so now we're back. It's been 2 minutes on the timer. We're just going to go ahead and You want to separate it here first, where it's joining down. You don't want to unscrew the threads because you're not trying to separate it this way. You just want to get it out of the clamp. I have got a belt trimmer. You have to set the blade depth at a certain height for different size belts, like the 15 millimeter or the 12 millimeter. If you have somebody who doesn't know how to use it, you usually end up coming back in, checking out your kit, and the blade's broken off on the inside. So since we fix these belts the most, I believe, the ones that run the transport band, the left and right transport band green round belts. So since those break the most, I have this set up to do the 15 millimeter belts. Usually I'm not doing a lot of 12s. Also, if you don't have that, I can say that you can certainly do it with a regular razor. You can take a straight razor. Be careful not to cut yourself. And let's see if I can get to where you can see it the best. You can lay the blade along the green round belt itself and slowly wiggle it back and forth, and just try to keep the contour of the belt as you come around it. And I'll show you. It's probably hard to see in the light, but that's how you trim it across the belt. I'm going to get it's kind of hard to start with the trimming tool because you got to kind of force it in. And you got to compress. I find it's best to compress with your hands as you rotate it around. As it comes around the back side, you'll probably see what it's bringing off. As I said, I'm compressing. Sorry, I'm compressing. I'm compressing this actual tool this way into itself as I rotate it around the green round belt. And you can see what it's shaving off on the inside right there. Bring it completely around. Go ahead and extract it. You extract it by pushing out with your thumb this direction. And that's a trimmed belt, trim re-welded belt, ready for the rack. Looks pretty good. Seams right there. So it does work. The tool does work, but like I said, usually you only have it adjusted for one side. So I'd say adjust it for the size you trim the most, and keep it out of people's hands that don't know how to use it. It slides up and then it goes straight onto the belt. And be sure to split your seam right down it and hold your pressure as you're rotating it. Alright, that's a repaired green round belt. Just one more note to recall on the green round belts when you put them on. It's 2 minutes in the clamps. Then the Brunswick instructs you don't put it on the machine or put any tension or stretch it out until 10 minutes after that. So you're looking at 12 minutes total job of re-welding the belt before installation. I have done less than the 10 minutes before. I was in a hurry in a league night. I think I waited about 8 minutes, went ahead and threw it on. So you can make that judgment call on your own. Sometimes it'll get it through the night and you'll be able to come in the next day and fix it. It just depends on how quick you can get it back together or how fast you need it. And a final note about your iron. Don't scrape it off with a scraper or knife. You got Teflon coating on here that helps to keep everything off of it, even though it doesn't work as well, because you're actually melting stuff on it. What I'd recommend is while you got it hot, I'm not going to do it to mine. Today mine's already cooled off. But when it gets hot, if you feel that it's getting too much buildup on the face of your actual paddle here, the iron, you can take it on a wooden surface and scrape it down across the surface itself. Like this, clean one side, and then you can roll it over and clean the other. But I wouldn't scrape it with the scraper. You'll just mess up your actual coating on the surface itself.